Okay, this is Rockstar Doctor Life Conversation with Dr. Alex Vidan. Hey there, Rockstar Doctors listening to the show today. I'm thrilled, as always, to introduce you to another amazing doctor who is not only rocking it in his practice and making a difference in his community, he's also doing a ton of media work, and he's got a beautiful family of 3. He's married to another chiropractor, and so we've got lots of great things we're going to chat about today on the show. Welcome, Dr. Alex Vidan.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
I love just starting off the show with, you taking a minute here to give us sort of a synopsis of, what is Dr. Alex doing these days? Give us sort of a snapshot of life for you right now.
Oh, life for us is, it's busy. We're having a lot of fun. We're hopping all around. So I'm speaking all over the U.S. and other countries, and it's been a lot of fun. Did China earlier this year. I'll be going to London, and we'll be doing Paris and like all over. So all over the US and everything, but we're staying really busy too with, my wife and I and our 3 kids. We're staying busy with them and just spending lots of time with them, pouring into them, getting to spend a lot of family time with them and making sure that we're getting into all this stuff. Like my kids are into gymnastics and dance and MMA and chess and all that kind of stuff. So we're staying busy with all those things. So it's a lot of fun. And, just trying to stay focused on all those things that are the most important to us. So that's kind of our, keeping those priorities the main priorities, and that's it.
And we'll have to definitely dig into some of your tips about productivity and how do you focus on, the things that you're preparing for when you're speaking or when you're in your practice. But before we jump into that, so how long have you been a chiropractor?
I graduated in 2004. So 14 years now. I'm going on 14 years.
And you always had the vision of having a private practice, or did you have any other practice experiences before you opened your own place?
I did not. My wife and I, we graduated from undergrad together. We met and we both knew we both wanted to be chiropractors. So we went through chiropractic school together. And I always had this vision of as soon as we graduate, we're going to start our own practice. And that's what we did. So she was on board with that too. She comes from her dad's an entrepreneur, so she comes from an entrepreneurial background. So the whole idea was, let's do this. Let's just get rocking and rolling. And we had, of course, our ups and downs and bumps and bruises, and never the blood, sweat, and tears thing really held true and showed in all of that with going through that process of starting off in practice, and then we persevered and kept on going and did our thing. But that was always the vision, was always to have our own practice.
Yeah, and so you would have had time to practice together before you had your first child, your oldest son, right?
Yes, we did. So we had about 4 years before we started having kids where we were practicing together, and it was great. We loved practicing together, and there was, like I said, a lot of challenges, but a lot of fun as well. So it was good.
Well, as we had a really good pre-chat there, and you said something powerful. You said, you're always learning from your losses, and the opportunities are always a chance for struggle. And we talked about how that even is a lesson we can be passing on to our kids. What are the biggest lessons you learned in your early days in practice that have transformed, you to where you are right now?
I would say that one of the biggest lessons is that, there's a lot.
I know. I can't ask you to just give me my one.
Like as you're saying it, I'm like, wow. And so I'll piggyback on what you said right there, and the idea that, yes, I've definitely learned more from my losses than I have from my wins. Those are opportunities, and those are opportunities for us to figure out. We often think that those things happen to us. Instead, they happen for us to show us where we can go and how we can come out on the other side of those things and who we really are. So I guess the things that I learned was that I don't know as much as I think I know about things, and every opportunity is a chance to learn. And I always looked at it as when these things happened to me, after I started going through that, I kept thinking, man, I know I'm better than this. I know that I can do more than this. I know I can provide at a higher level than this. And I just wasn't. And then I figured out, you know what, these are opportunities for me to learn more. And I still look at things now as that way, like, okay, that's an opportunity for me to learn. The other thing that I figured out too was that we are all stronger than we really think that we are. And we can push a little bit more than what we think that we're doing right now. We all kind of get comfortable and set into it. So I look at it as there's levels. Every time there's levels. So whenever we were in, let's say, middle school, you thought, oh man, I'm so busy, right? I'm busy with school. I'm busy with sports. I'm busy with family life, whatever it is. And then you get into high school and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I thought I was busy then. And then you get into undergrad and you, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much free time I had in high school. It's nothing. And then you go into become a chiropractor and you get your doctorate degree and everything. You go, I had so much free time before and now I have none. And then you get out and practice. So you see what I mean? Every time you're leveling up and leveling up and leveling up. But I often find that whenever we get into practice, we don't continually force ourselves to level up as we had in the past. Because before, It was, well, this is the environment. This is where I am. I need to level up because everybody else that I see around me has to do that as well. Otherwise you fall out. And then when we're out in practice, a lot of times we feel like we're out on our own, doing our own thing. And we don't often think to myself, man, how can I keep leveling up and pushing to do more? So I really try to abide by that rule of I am the 5 people that I hang around the most. And I want to hang around the right people that are in that right mindset. It doesn't mean that the friends of mine and the family of mine that aren't in that mindset, that I don't spend time with them at all. I just don't go down the path that I know is going to bring out those conversations that we are going to now butt heads against, or that I don't want to have that kind of headspace around me. It doesn't mean that I'm sensitive to it. It just means that, you know what? I'm here if you ever want to ask me about those things, but I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. You see what I mean by that?
Oh,
I hope that's
absolutely.
coming across.
I'm thinking of, you just touched on so many things I'd love to expand on. The toxic people is definitely something that everyone can relate to. I mean, we all have people, sometimes they're in our own practices, right? They're people that you're sharing your message about health and healing and chiropractic, and they just, they put up a wall. They don't believe you. They don't want to follow your care plans. People are, docs deal with that kind of stuff all the time, not to mention some of the stuff that happens in the media that attacks what we do as chiropractors. And you can't stay focused on that. You have to stay focused on the things that matter to you and sharing your truth, right?
Absolutely. 100%. And when you have those people in your life, some of them you just have to fire from your life.
Yep.
Just some of them you just have to, nope, and you can either have that conversation and hey, look, brother, I love you. We've been friends since, first grade or fifth grade or whatever. And I love you. But when you start talking about that stuff, I can't be around you. We just can't talk about those things. So either you and I aren't going to have those conversations and we're going to stay friends, or we're not. And, you're going to deal with the fact of you're going to have people that are going to say, well, you think that you're so much better than me or any of that kind of stuff. It's not about that. It's just that I'm going down this path and I want you to come along this path. But if you're not ready, then that's fine. And you can have resentment to that. But you have to love yourself more than you have to worry about somebody else's thoughts and feelings about you.
Absolutely. And I think that, whether they're your family members or your friends or people, that's really a mature way to handle things and to really, and I think it's also an act of self-love, right? And self-worth.
Absolutely.
Is if you can define for yourself, this is what matters to me and who I want to support myself with, and honor your own values. Definitely. I love when you talked about leveling up, you always rise up to the next level. And I think parenting's like that too, right? I mean, when you and your wife had your first son, okay, life changed. And then you had another child and you're thinking, how am I going to deal with 2? And then you just deal with 2. And then another one comes along and you just keep growing and learning. And I know that a lot of first-time parents are always like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to manage another child, or how am I going to love another child the same way I love this one? And well, you just do. Your heart grows and life rolls forward.
Right. That's, I love how you say that too, that your heart just grows and you think to yourself, how can I have, so I look at it this way too, is that we start to get ourselves in such a narrow mindset until we're expanded, right? So you think with your first kid, you're like, how can I love anyone else more than I love this person, right? How can I, because when you have that first kid, you just sit there and when I had my first child, I never realized that I would stare at another human being as much as I did. Like I would just sit there and I'd just be like, I'm just in awe of this amazing little perfect being, right? And you just look at him, you're like, man, look at that, and one day we're going to have another one and we're going to figure out how to do that too. And how cool is that? So you keep leveling up your capacity of those things, and it's effortless. You just do it. You just all of a sudden I love this other person this much too. It's amazing,
Yeah, you want these little babies to sleep, and then they finally go to sleep, and you sit there and stare at them sleeping for hours.
Yeah, and that's it, Yeah. So, but it's the same thing in if we can relate that to practice too, we can expand that too. We can expand our consciousness there too. We think to ourselves, well, there's no way that I could get to that level or do that, whatever that is. It doesn't matter what it is. We all have our personal things and goals and ideas and dreams and all that kind of stuff. So whatever that is for you, you can do it. You just have to figure out, how do I access that in my mind to make those things happen so that it's not seen as an obstacle or not seen as a limiting factor. Like there's no shortage of love. There's no, as a parent, you don't go, well, I only have so much love for you and then so much love for you. And you missed your capacity there. That kind of a thing. It's like, no, I love you all. And that's it. I love you all. And you can't understand that until you start having those opportunities to love other people in that kind of a way. But it's the same thing in practice. It's like in practice, you want to do the same thing. It's like, I can expand this consciousness and expand what it is that I'm doing. I just have to figure out how to access that and push myself or motivate myself into that factor so that I can grow from there.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, I'm looking at your, I briefly know about your life story here, and you are substantially busier now than 14 years ago, right? When
Sure.
those
Oh,
days
yeah.
it was just you and your wife in practice. Now you have a family of, 3 children. You're speaking and touring, and you're still running a practice. You're doing a lot of media work. You have
Right.
completely leveled up, right? Like you're
Yeah.
just adapting at a different level and doing more things that you love.
Right.
And it hasn't gone the opposite way where you've gotten less busy. Your life has gotten busier as the time's gone on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So
And I
how,
think that you touched on if I could right there, I do want
yeah,
to say one thing. Like you touched on a key point. Like I'm doing more things that I love.
yeah.
And because when I started, I had to do all the stuff. I had to answer the phone. When we started, literally my wife and I traded. I was the one that answered the phones and greeted people at the door when it was her patients. And then whenever it was my patients, we would switch, right? And I did all the stuff and she did all the stuff, and we would alternate back and forth. Sometimes she did talks and I held down the fort. Sometimes she did talks and and vice versa, that kind of thing. Now we can all say, okay, let's all do the best things for us, right? So you're the best at this, you do that thing. You're the best at that, you do that thing. But it takes time to get to that point to where you can go, this is what I truly love. So now I can focus on that and pour into that. But you have to get the right team around you.
Yeah, amen to that. But also, I mean, that's a big focus for me with the people I work with, and also, on the show is find ways to do more of what you love in your life in general. So if you want to spend more time with your kids, how can you create your business life so that you can be there for soccer games or picking up your kids after school or whatever hobbies or personal things that you find meaningful? But I also think, like you just said with you and your wife, like those first years where you spent together doing both jobs, helping each other out, that's how you start a business. That's how you start a practice. And for some new grads and new docs, like they sort of jump in and invest all this energy and resources into building their dream right from the beginning without having the patient base to substantiate that.
Yes. Yeah. I would rather grow out of a practice than try to fill into a practice.
Is there anything that you would do differently if you were to start a new practice today compared to when you did it 14 years ago?
So idealistically, I'd like to say yes, because I learned from these things and da 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 da. But the reality is I'm going to say no, because those experiences are the things that made me who I am today. Right. So I would do it exactly like I did it. But when I'm talking to other people about, we all have to follow our own dreams and figure out what's right for us. So maybe for somebody else, they might go, well, I would never start my own practice. I would always want to learn from somebody else and then expand from there. And that's what I would suggest that people do. But there's a percentage of people out there that are going to go, there is no way I'm going to start off my own practice. I'm going to do it. And I know I'm going to have to just, eat ramen noodles. And I know that I'm just going to have to, have my little 1-bedroom studio or whatever it is. And I'm not going to. And here's the hard part is that, especially now in our society today, the idea is that everybody's making money, everybody's, balling, and everybody's a hustler, and everybody's grinding, and everybody's all this stuff. And that's the things that we see on social, and that's the things that we see that are out there. And when we see everybody, all of our friends, when we're not making the money and they're the ones driving the nice cars and, the expensive dinners and all this stuff, and they're out partying and everything, and we're having to sit back and go, I'm going to have to just grind out and just eat dirt for a while until I figure out how to level this up. Now that might be a month for you. That might be a year for you. That might not even happen for you. That might be, I might be projecting other things because that's what happened for us. Right. But at the same time, it's one of those things where whatever it is, sooner or later, you're going to have to figure out, how do I level up my practice? How do I take things to a different phase so that I can then have the lifestyle that I want, whatever that is. Like you said, you can design it however you want.
Yeah, and I think that can also be one of those toxic behaviors. We talked about toxic people, but sitting there and comparing yourself to everyone else and what they're doing on social media is a lot of, it's very misleading. I mean, one of my favorite quotes was a friend of mine was talking about, you all see the photo of our family at Christmas. What you didn't see was the argument I had with my wife before that picture was taken. The youngest one was screaming. The other two were hitting each other. You just get a snapshot, right, of someone's good things. And some people love to share their challenges as well. But, I think the summary here is just, don't compare yourself to other people. You can be inspired by other people and look to people for leadership. But if you're modeling your own definition of success based on what someone else is doing, you're going to meet a lot of challenge in your life and a lot less joy than you deserve.
Yeah. For
How
sure.
did you get into the media stuff that you've been doing? I mean, you transition now to, being the health correspondent for Fox Media. You're speaking internationally. Can you take us through what that looked like at the beginning for you and how you got your start? Because I know lots of docs
Sure.
are sitting here going, oh, I'd love to be doing that. It's something that resonates with them as well.
Sure. So I'll say that whenever I got into chiropractic, I was pre-med working at the hospital. I always knew that I wanted to help people and I didn't want to have to do it with drugs and surgery. I just didn't know another way. At this point in my life, I didn't know anything about chiropractic. About 5 years prior, I had gotten a concussion playing sports. And so I would always have headaches about 5-6 times a week. I'd usually have a debilitating migraine about once to twice a month, and it would level me for a day or so or half day. So one of my buddies just kept on me, you need to go see my chiropractor. You need to go see my chiropractor. And I would say, dude, why am I going to go see a chiropractor? I don't have back pain. I don't have neck pain. Why would I go see a chiropractor? He said, no, for your headaches that you get all the time. No. I'm good. And, I didn't want any of the options that they gave me, right? I didn't want the drugs. I didn't want all the stuff, even working at the hospital and doing all that thing. I just didn't want it. Because I just knew that it wasn't right, but I didn't know another way. Right. So finally I said, hey man, give me your chiropractor's number. I was at one of those points where a lot of our patients were just like, all right, it's a last ditch effort. I don't know why I'm wasting my time, but let me go check this out. And I went to this chiropractor and now what's it been? It's been, 19 years. And I can say that after I got that adjustment, I said, this is what I want to do with my life. And I said, tell me about this chiropractic thing. And so the guy started talking to me. He wasn't really philosophically based, which was fine, but he just kind of told me a little bit about chiropractic. And I was like, okay, I'm going to find out more. And this wasn't at a time where, this was hard to believe, but it wasn't at a time where you could just go Google everything. Right? I know. Gosh, it seems weird, but it wasn't at a time where you could just Google everything and look it all up like that. So I actually had to go and find and search and do that. And it led me on the path. And I go, okay, this is what I want to do with my life. From that first adjustment, I remember being, this is what I want to do. Because now, in almost 19 years, I've had 5 headaches and 1 migraine. And that was like a typical week. So I thought to myself at that time, all right, I'm going to become a chiropractor. And when I become a chiropractor, then I'm going to get on TV because why doesn't everybody know about this? I just thought, and at that time I thought that's the only place that I could go was be on TV to spread the message about what this thing is and how great it is. And everyone should know about this. And that's really how I felt. So it was always my mission. And then when I went through chiropractic school, I remembered sitting back and hearing speakers. We would go to different seminars during school, like where we were students in school, and I would hear people speak. And I would say to my wife all the time, one day I'm going to be on that stage. One day that's going to be us, baby. Like we're going to do this and we're going to be, because we're a team, right? Like we're going to be doing that. And I just kept pushing and just kept making it and kept doing little things and kept showing up. And I realized that a lot of times the biggest thing is just being able to show up and be there. And a lot of times I find that we look at things and we go, what am I going to immediately get out of this? And how is it going to show up as far as an immediate ROI? And we don't look at it as, well, let me just do the right thing and give and pour into whatever it is that I'm pouring into. And let me just show up. And if something happens from it, it happens from it. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And when you're first starting out in practice, that's a really hard way to look at things because you need that immediate ROI, or at least I did when I started out in practice. Mm-hmm. I wanted that immediate ROI, but I also realized if I could play the long game, then I was going to win. And more importantly, my community would win. And, what I was doing and serving was going to win too. So that's kind of the long story of how that worked and how I got to being on the stages and on the media and all of that.
And you knew innately that you wanted to be sharing the message.
Yes.
And I'm guessing one opportunity just led to another. And the more you started doing more media work, you got more comfortable. I mean, you're very articulate, very well spoken. You've learned as you've gone along in the whole media game, right?
For sure. Yeah. I got that first opportunity. I'll be honest, I kept pestering and bugging them. And over a decade ago, that was a lot different than it is today. So I just kept on and kept on and kept on, and I was persistent. And so I think that's a big thing too, is that we have to be willing to be persistent, even when we don't know that it's going to turn out or pan out. And I find that a lot of times what we end up doing is we just go, well, I tried that one time, it didn't work. And we hear that from patients too sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, yeah, I tried that chiropractic thing. Oh, it didn't work, right? Well, how often did you go? Did you stay consistent? Did you do what you need to do? Like all that stuff. Well, no, but that's not the story I'm going to tell you. I'm just going to tell you that I tried it and didn't work, right? And so it's the persistence that pays. And if we really want to get to the place that we want to be, we've got to be persistent. Mm-hmm. So, and just that's why I say, and circling back to what we talked about earlier, that's why it's so important for us to have the people in our lives that are on the same track as us. It's not because you don't love those other family members or those other friends or those other people that you truly care about that aren't on the same path mentally as you. And I don't mean just on the same chiropractic. I just mean in life. Mm-hmm. That maybe there's those ones that are the vampires, right? So energy vampires that are out there. And when you're pursuing your dreams and you're pursuing your mission and you're staying true to your heart and soul of what that really is, it's draining to be around those other people. And when you're around those other people that keep draining you, then you don't have the effort and energy that you really need to sustain on a daily basis to pursue your own dreams. So yes, it is about reaching your goal and your destiny, but it's really hard to stay persistent and be consistent with those things whenever you're draining all this energy on these other things that really you don't need to be focusing on. And we all innately know what those things are, whether or not it's people or other things in our lives or whatever it is. We all have those things that drain us, and we need to stay focused on the things that really, that excite you and give you like goosebumps and all that kind of stuff when you think about it and you're like, that's what I want to do. Like, that's the thing that excites me. I've got to do more of that.
And if you're having those feelings and those ideas, and then you're around people that tell you your dreams are bullshit or your dreams aren't going to happen or kind of roll their eyes, and that's not supportive.
No. Yeah. And that's draining because now I've got to fight you and try to, or convince you, or internally have the struggle within my own brain of dealing with that. And sometimes people will say, well, I just kind of brush them off. Well, but do you really? Because you love them. And since you love them and you want to be around them, and they're poo-pooing your dreams and they're saying all that kind of stuff and they're slamming your stuff, then is it really serving you to be around them more, or at least to have those same conversations? So maybe you don't talk about your hopes and dreams and what you're doing right now, and then you just show it to them. Right?
Yeah. And it's almost like I think of it as with parenting, right? Like there's friends that I have who I know they have different values when it comes to their children's health, and they make different choices. My kids get sick and I know how I'm going to handle it, and their kids get sick and they do something else. And I found myself just getting frustrated at certain times of my life, wanting to help their family, right? And wanting to share our truth. And, there's so much I can do. And then I would just be like, you know what? I'm just going to sit back and realize you have every right to make decisions that are right for your family. And we're just not going to talk about that. So I know that we can go mountain biking together because we have that shared commonality, but we're not going to talk about parenting because it just doesn't fit for us. So I think you can still have those people in your life as long as you stay congruent with the things that you have in common and not the things that cause you grief and strife.
Got it.
So, when you became a parent, things changed for you and your wife as far as practice, right? Like you had been working together. And let's just talk about that, because I know there's lots of other chiropractic couples, ones who are, have children, ones who are considering it, and curious as to how to make it work for them when their family dynamic changes.
Well, I think that for my wife and I, I'll start there and then we can talk about the stuff with the kids, is that for my wife and I, the idea is that it's best to have clearly defined roles. So, and you define that however you want. Initially it was that, and this will sound weird based on what I'm telling you and based on my media experience and based on me speaking on stages and everything like that. But initially, my wife, her name's Sarah was the one that went out and did all the talks. And Sarah was the one that did all the lecturing. And she's the one that did all that stuff. And she was really the one that was doing a lot more of that, because I was in the practice adjusting and doing all those things. As time went on, then it got to be, and it's not like I wasn't doing it. She was just the primary. It was probably a 60-40 split at that time. But as time went on and we started having kids, then we realized, hey, we've got to change these roles. And so she wasn't able to do that as much because she needed to be more accessible with the baby. And we had clearly defined roles of, this is what we're going to do. And we had to figure that out with us because we're both chiefs. And so, neither one of us is really an Indian, right? We're both chiefs. And so it's really hard when you have that, to kind of figure out like, okay, you're going to be in charge of this stuff. I'm going to be in charge of that stuff. And then we're going to confer on the things so that we're all on the same page. And I'm going to report to you on what I'm doing, and you're going to report to me on what you're doing. And we have that give and take and that back and forth. No one's, it's easy to say no one's in charge, but we're both in charge of our own stuff. And that's really what it is, because I'm in charge of my thing and she's in charge of her thing. And then we talk about that with each other. And so we found that the easiest thing for us was to do that to where it was a divide and conquer. You're going to take care of your thing, I'll take care of mine, and then we make it work.
Mm-hmm. And that's the great gift within our profession, right? Is that we can actually create what works, right?
Yes.
And what your visions are. There's plenty of parents who are trying to figure out how to do it all. And, knowing that as our children go through different life stages, from the baby stages and breastfeeding and, sleeping, all those things to teenage years are very different. And you want to be present for your kids in different ways.
Right.
And anything's possible.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we had to kind of figure out too, is what does that vision look like for us, just like you said, and what is that we want? So do I want to be able to set it up so that I stop seeing patients at a certain time so that I can make it to my kids' matches or meets or games or whatever it is? Or is it going to be that we're going to trade off, or we can design it however we want? And that's the beautiful thing. But I really did figure out that one of the biggest things for me is, and as I hope that your listeners get this, is that just having it to where I know that my dad worked more of a 9-to-5 type of a job, and my setup, the way we have our life, is it's not really 9 to 5, but I get to have it however I want. Mm-hmm. And so, the beautiful thing about having your own business is that you get to work any 80 hours a week that you want, right? Is you can set it up however you want. And you know what I'm saying there. It's
you could work from 7 to 10 p.m. on your office if you need to when your kids are sleeping.
Right. Whatever you need to do. But the thing is that whatever you want, if you want it to where, hey, I want more time with my family, cool, then have more time with your family. Mm-hmm. That's your goal. Do that. But whenever you're with them, be with them. Don't be with them and watch TV, right? Unless it's going to be, hey, me and my child are watching this, this game or this whatever it is, and we're going to pick apart these things, and it's actually going to be something that we do together. But don't just have sedentary, non-engaging time. So we set it up so that our time together is doing something. So you mentioned mountain biking or hiking or things like that. Like, what can we do together that's going to actually be engaging? And it could be as simple as like, we're just playing Legos and we're just building, or I'm just playing Barbies. I can't tell you how many times I played Barbies in My Little Pony, right? And so they're like, this one's yours. Like, I know which Barbies are mine, for me to play with when we're playing, right? Like, it's like, I know these are the ones that they're usually having me be. These are my characters. Yeah. And so that's fine, but it's not about doing sedentary things that are just passive and just wash over us. And we say, well, I spent 2 hours together, but did you really spend 2 hours together, or did you invest 2 hours together? And I think that's a little switch too. It's like, I'm investing into them. So the time is the important part. It's the quality of time, not so much the quantity of time that really makes the most impact. And that's where I try to really, how can I really get the most out of, and just really I don't want just the meat on the bone. I want to break open the bone and get the marrow out of that thing so I can get everything out of it. You know what I'm saying? And I know that's kind of like a graphic way of thinking of it, but that's how I try to think of my time and the things that I'm doing, because my time with my family is precious, and the time that I'm spending I get a limited amount of time here. And people gave up everything in order for me to be here and have this opportunity, in my life and in our profession and all those things. And because of that, we owe it to ourselves and to our maker and our creator and our lives and your own destiny to get everything that you can and want out of life. And if we can pour that back into our kids, that's where the real juice is. And so why not do that and get the most out of it?
What keeps you so inspired every day? I feel like life, right? Like just with what you kind of just answered the question, but really, I mean, you're touring, you're speaking, you're inspiring people in your community. What keeps you fired up for chiropractic and for what you do?
Oh man, that's such a great question. So, I'm first generation born here in the United States, and my dad came over whenever he was 10 years old by himself from Cuba. So I'm a first generation born from Cuba, and, my grandparents put everything on the line to send him here, and then they came about a year later. So I look at it as that most of us, unless you're Native American, and you can go even further back, but most of it, we come from somewhere along the way, somewhere in your family, somebody risked everything. They came over here with $1 in their pocket or just one suitcase or $500 or whatever it was. And they risked everything for you to be here today. Everything, like the whole universe conspired for you to be at this point today. And, all of the forefathers that came before us, they went to jail and they did everything, and they went to jail over and over and over for us to get to have the opportunity to be here and serve at this level today. And I look at those things and I go, man, like that kind of stuff for my family, for what my family has done before me, for what my profession has done before me. I look at that and I go, I mean, not only do I owe it to myself, I owe it to all of them. And I'm willing to carry that and do that because I want other people to see that too and be inspired by those things and be inspired in their own lives. And, I'm friends with a lot of people that are in there. This is going to sound weird, but I'm friends with people that are in their 80s and 90s. And we literally go to dinner together and we hang out. And, one of my favorite people of all time, he's nearest and dearest to my heart. His name is Red Shanings, and he's been in the Cardinals organization for over 70 years. And the guy is 94 years old, and he's done so much in his life. And he's still like, I look at him, I'm like, man, you've done so much. And it's been so amazing. He's like, I could have done more. I could have done more. And he's so grateful for his life. And he is. And he always pours into me whenever I'm around him. I just sit and I listen like a little kid at Christmas listening to the Christmas story kind of thing, and I see those things and I think to myself, man, that's how I want to be. I want to go like, man, I went all in. I did everything that I could because I don't want to look back and regret later the things that I could have done or should have done or would have liked to do. Instead being like, man, we get a short, finite amount of time. At best we get how many summers? 70 summers, 80 summers, whatever it is, like, 90 summers, whatever it's going to be. We get that many springs, that many winters, that many fall. And so when we look at that, I don't want to look back and go, I missed out on it. Like I missed, like whatever that is to you, that's completely different for everyone. Whatever your thing is, make it your thing, but be all in on that. And when it's really, I hate using that because it seems to be like a catchphrase right now. Go all in on that and go all in on it. But remember, you got to do a lot of the other stuff like that you're probably not going to love. Where we started off this conversation, I didn't always do the things that I love to do.
Yeah.
But I had to do those things to get to where I want to be. I like traveling. I like getting on planes and going places and speaking and doing all that stuff. Is it my favorite thing to be away from my family? No. But I also have this passion and this vision for what it is that we do and we all love within chiropractic. And I've got to do that too. And I have to be true to those things too. And I'm very fortunate and blessed in the fact that my wife is on mission with that too. Right. So I have the support there, which makes everything so much easier for everything else. So, those are the things that drive me. Yeah.
And I think that spending time with people who are older is phenomenal. I mean, their wisdom and their life experiences is so exciting. And I think they're often very inspiring. It's making me laugh because just this morning I was driving my oldest son to school and there's a lawn bowling club right that we passed and they're having an open house this weekend. I'm like, I'm going to go try this on Sunday. He's like, what? He goes, you're going to go lawn bowling? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you're going to go hang out with a bunch of old people? I'm like, yes. I said, I've never done that before. It looks kind of fun. And you know what? I really like old people because I think they've got so much to learn from them.
Yeah. Yeah. They have their experience. There's something we can learn from everybody. It doesn't matter who. It's just whether or not we're open to receiving that.
Yeah. Now you touched on briefly, one of your oldest friends, the 94-year-old who's with the Cardinals organization. Tell us about your experience being the team chiropractor for the Cardinals.
Oh, that was amazing. I'm still associated with the team, as in I still take care of a lot of the top dogs and the top guys and all that kind of stuff. But just with my travel schedule and family and all those things, I just don't have the time that's needed to devote to it. But I will say that the team itself, I mean, amazing. Getting to work with those guys and represent chiropractic in that way was fantastic and still is fantastic. And it's the great thing about them is that they look at it as, look, I'm just looking for performance, right? I'm just looking to keep this Ferrari running like it's supposed to and keep it at its top, because we all know that no matter what the pro sport, we've got a limited window of opportunity and time. And so we've got to make all of that count. And so it's the same thing. They just loved chiropractic. Like they love chiropractic. They love the idea of, so this does this for my nervous system and allows me to function like this. Man, that's great. And when they go out and they see that they heal faster and they get better faster and all those things happen, then they want more of it and they want to find out more about that. And the cool thing is then you get to work in a team environment. You get to work in an environment where I get to do the thing that I'm best at, which is adjusting people. The PT gets to do the thing that they're best at, which is the rehab aspect. The athletic trainer gets to do the thing that he's best at. The massage therapist gets to do the thing that she's best at. The trainer that they have on staff that helps them with their workouts and everything gets to do the thing that she's best. Like all that stuff, everybody gets to do the thing they're best at. So, talking baseball, it's like, well, we've got the best pitcher, the best catcher, the best shortstop, the best first baseman. Not, well, you can fill in. You're good enough at that. It's like everybody's doing the thing that they're best at and love to do. So everybody works together as a team. And that, I would say that's probably one of the greatest things. And I if I could just give one tip, if anybody out there is thinking about working with teams and thinking about working with organizations, whether or not it's, little leagues up to major leagues, it doesn't matter. One of the tips that I would give is have your conversations be inclusive, not exclusive. And this will translate out into practice too. So you want your conversations to always be inclusive, not exclusive. So what I mean by that is that if I had a player sitting there in front of me and I saw this going on in, let's say, his lower cervical, upper thoracic, and I knew that translates into what's going on into the shoulder too, I'm going to point that out and I'm going to say something to the athletic trainer, but I'm not going to point it out in a negative way. I'm going to say, hey, I was just checking so-and-so. I got him adjusted and everything. Everything's looking good there. Would you mind taking a look at this in his right shoulder and in his upper pec? Because I was seeing some of this stuff going on. Would you just mind taking a look at that? And that makes it to where now I'm opening dialogue. I'm not ordering anything. I'm not saying do this. I'm asking, would you mind taking a look at it? Because I saw that. Or have you noticed that any of these things? If I say that to somebody, they're easily, oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll take a look at it. And then I can circle back with them later. Hey, did you see anything going on there? Oh, you know what? I did. This is something I've seen with him before. I've noticed blah, 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 blah. Or I've never seen that before, but I'm glad you pointed it out to me because we got it taken care of. That's going to keep him out on the field and allow him to play longer and better. So it's an inclusive conversation. Inclusive conversations allow for more collaborative work. It allows us to co-manage together. It allows us to work together to ultimately get the player back out on the field and keep them on the field. And that should be the same kind of thing in our practices too. Right? Like we can translate that into practice too. So if you're working with, let's say with an OB and you're working with an OB, then you can say, hey, I noticed this going on with her pelvis. Have you noticed that too? And do you notice sometimes that we see these type of things going on and sometimes that can inhibit some of the issues that happen when in the delivery process? Would you mind just letting me know if you see anything going on there with her pelvis as well? Or would you mind taking a look and see if you see anything going on with her pubic symphysis because it looks like it's really unstable to me and I'm doing some things to help with it. Would you mind checking that next time that you see her too? And that then allows that conversation to just open up and have it to where it's, again, an inclusive conversation. And when you have those conversations, guess who those people want to refer to and work with more? The person who's exclusive or the person who's inclusive.
Yeah, you're building bridges with them.
Absolutely. I want to build as many bridges as I can to whoever it is that I can to open up the dialogue, meet them where they are, and then go ahead and work from there. So I could have easily gone into the Cardinals organization whenever I started on day one and started beating everybody over the head with my green books, right? Like I could have started like that and just gone philosophy and I'm just going to shove it down their throat, or I could have gone, well, this is a very mechanistic point of view that everybody has here. And okay, there's still room for what I do within this. And let me be in here and then I can open everything up and open up that conversation. And as I start to get into that more and more, I can kind of meet them where they are and show them what they could have along the way. And as they start seeing that more and more, their eyes start opening up more and more. And they're like, tell me more about that. Because ultimately, like people want what we have. People want those things. They just don't know it. And I find that the more that I can meet somebody where they are and bring them along, that's the strategy that works best for me. I have other friends that are like, no, forget it. I'm just beating them over the head with it. And if they get it, they get it. And if they don't, eventually they're going to get it. I'm like, cool, that works for you. That's not what works for me. It's not my truth. So I can't speak to that because it wouldn't work. It wouldn't resonate right. And people would smell that and feel that and know that's not really who he is. And since that's not who he is, it's not going to work. So whoever you are and however you speak to people, make that really what it is. Because you might look at it and go, well, Vidan does it like that, but I would rather beat somebody over the head with it. And that's what works for me. cool, do that. Like, that's your thing.
Right, because if
speak
you
your
try to
truth.
do it a different way, it's not going to come across as you anyway.
No, never. And we all know that. But sometimes, I listen to certain podcasts, I listen to certain people and things of that nature. Like one of my all-time favorites, which is outside. So I listen to in chiropractic and I listen to people outside of chiropractic. And outside of chiropractic, one of my favorites is, and not to promote somebody else's thing, but it's this guy, his name's Andy Frisella, and he does this thing called the MFCEO. Now, if you've never heard of him, you've never done anything, fine. But the warning is the guy swears a lot, and I don't really cuss or swear a lot. But whenever you hear those things, sometimes you can start to, when you listen to somebody so much, you start to notice that you start to speak like them sometimes too, right? And so I have to really be careful about that. And so I have to watch out for those things. And whenever I'm watching out for that stuff, you just have to listen to it and take what you can from it, but make it you and make it who you are so it's authentic to you.
So, obviously you were able to get involved with the Cardinals because you had other team experience, or was that just really serendipitous for you? For docs that are listening that are thinking, you know what, I even would love in my own community to get involved with a high school sports team, or because you weren't even only just with the Cardinals, you were also with the Rams in football for a number of years too, right?
Yes. Yeah. I did some work with them with the Rams in football, the football team here before they moved to LA as well. So, so anybody that's looking as how that happens is that they're looking for people that are out there. They're looking for people that they can work with. And yes, you do. It's always better to know somebody so that you can get that foot in the door, and so that can make that happen. Because quite often it's who you know, not always what you know.
Right.
And we all know that. We've heard that. But the problem is that most of us aren't willing to. I'll go back to again, persistently and consistently show up, so that and not realize what the return on the investment's going to be, and.
Right. In volunteering in ways and just putting in the time and doing the little things that then ultimately are planting seeds for future ideas and successes.
The problem is we don't know what those future ideas, plans, and successes are all the time. We might have an idea. So we have an idea like, well, this is where I want to go. This is the direction I want to go. But sometimes as we start moving along that path, we realize that's actually not what I wanted. I wanted this other thing. And this other thing is so much better than what I actually got. Yeah. Right. And so,
like you said earlier, life happens for us.
It happens for us. That's exactly it. It happens for us, not to us. So the way that I got my foot in the door is that prior to me, there was a chiropractor that was there. His name was Dr. Ralph Filson, and phenomenal guy. He was one of my instructors at school, and he was he and another couple of docs were some of my mentors as far as things for philosophy and patient care and all that kind of stuff, and just people that I could turn to.
Right.
I was not obviously the only one of their people that had that. They had like a group of us that were like that. And then they, as I graduated, they always kind of like watch everybody and just kind of see what they're doing. And as time went on, I was getting out into the community more and more. I was on the news. My face was getting seen more and it was getting recognized more. And I was becoming more of a cultural authority in my town for health and wellness and that kind of a experience that was happening. And when the time came and they were saying, hey, we need to have, Dr. Filson said, I would like to have another chiropractor come in here because he had been with the team for 16 years at that point. And he said, I would like to have another chiropractor come in here. And he threw my name in the ring and said, this is who I'd like. Now, I didn't know at that time. So people hear that and they're kind of like, oh, so somebody just hooked you up and that's how it worked out. I wish it was that simple. I wish it was just that somebody threw my name in and that's how it worked. That's not how it worked. He put my name in the ring, and then there's a huge vetting process. Now, fortunately, because of the fact that the circles that I was traveling in enough of the people that he threw the name in the ring with had already heard my name from other things too. And so they had seen me on TV. This one saw me on TV. This one met me at this other event. This one met me at this, this gala thing that happened before because of my association with the news. This one met me, in these other settings. And so they would with me or hear about me in a certain way. So at least they didn't know me. Like if you said, who was that guy? They would have no clue who I was really, but they knew it. My name was familiar enough. It was kind of one of those names where you're like, oh, I kind of know who that is. And then isn't he the guy that, and it's like, oh yes, that guy, got it. Right. So there was enough familiarity so that they were like, well, let's give this guy a shot. And so then there was the whole vetting process that they went through, and that was a whole thing. And there was, then there was my first day to come down there and get to do it and all those things. So every step of the way, it was an interview, and it was a long interview process that happened there. And it was me having Dr. Filson was just the foot in the door, the opportunity to get there. It was like whenever, if you wanted to work for a big company and somebody's like, well, I know somebody there, we can at least get your resume in front of them.
Right.
And that was it. It's like, well, that's what happened. That just got my name in front of them. And then the rest of it happened. So, but I didn't know that all those other things that happened well before, all those other times that I was showing up, all those other times that I was getting on the news, all those other times I was doing PR work and everything else, I didn't know it was going to lead to anything in particular. I just trusted in the process and loved the process enough to know that if I keep pouring into it, good things can only happen from this, as opposed to if I'm sitting at, I just go to the office and I go home and I'm not outside of my four walls, then I don't know what other good can come from that. I just know that if I keep getting out there, more good will come from it.
Yeah, it wasn't just like, I love that you shared that whole story, Alex, because it's not like you just showed up and walked in and they said, yeah, here you go, here's the job. They had, if you hadn't done all of those other things to establish yourself and get experience and get a great reputation, the opportunity wouldn't have been there. So it's really another testament to the importance of planting seeds in your community and doing things and giving for the sake of giving into your community and learning as you go along, because you didn't know what all those things were going to lead to. No,
I had no clue. I just trusted in the fact that something good's going to come out of this eventually one day.
Yeah. So you've had, obviously a lot of success, success in practice. You've had that super cool experience that I know a lot of chiropractors are thinking, how amazing that would have been. You're traveling now. How do you define success for yourself?
Any day now, I'll figure it out.
Oh, nice one.
No, I mean, okay, all joking aside, success for me is where I am at this point. This is whenever I started. This was my dream to be at this point where I am. Success for me is having family time, is to be able to take my wife and kids on vacations and get to spend time with them, is to be able to send my kids to great schools, to be able to provide excellent care for my practice members and my community, and get to let them know more of what chiropractic is about and what a health lifestyle is really like and what we can really do to prevent. Like, those are the things. Yeah, sure. There's the money and the stuff and all that kind of thing and all that stuff that we tend to think of with that. But really for me, it's getting to do the things that I'm best at and I love, and surrounding myself with the people that can help me to do that, because I'm not great at a lot of other things, but if I can have other people that are around me to help with that, then I know that we're all going to move forward together and that we're all going to ultimately get what we want. So for me, success is living the things that I have determined are the goals for me. Like that's it. And being able to have those opportunities, that's really it for me.
Yeah, that's a great definition of success as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's been a true pleasure chatting with you today, and I know that a lot of people will find tremendous value in our conversation. It's gone a little bit longer than I expected. Thank you for your generosity with your time here today. And certainly listeners, we'll include in the show notes links to all the cool things that Dr. Vidan is doing. And you'll also have the chance to hear him speak at a number of events that are coming up. We'll both be at the event in September in New York. And also, interestingly enough, that weekend, he will also be in Halifax, Canada, as well, sharing some ideas there. So we'll throw in those links in the show notes. And any final thoughts that you have before we sign off here, Alex?
I'd say that, number one, thank you so much for having me on the show and just being part of the podcast. And I really appreciate it. The other thing that I would say is thank you for what you're doing for chiropractic and chiropractors, because it's just so valuable to have access to this kind of information. And I love what you're doing with that. And I truly appreciate those things, because it's just a way of helping all of us and all boats rise within that if we can all learn from each other, we're all here to help each other. We're all here to really contribute to each other's success, because then everybody wins. So I truly appreciate you doing that. And I appreciate you being a part of that process for all of us. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's I'm of the motto, do what you love as well. So I certainly feel very honored and grateful that I get to have these conversations with amazing people. And it brings me a lot of joy, and I learn something from every person as well. So it gives me a lot of pleasure as well. But thanks again for your time, and I hope you have a fabulous rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.